Hey, what's going on? We're live. Hey, I'm going to jump right into this. So I'm with my family, somewhat in isolation, like a lot of you guys are. And I figured it's a good time to discuss the immune system. Now, I want to come right out and say, first thing, without anything else, I am not a doctor. I'm not an infectious disease expert. I'm not going to give any information surrounding this entire situation. But what I am going to do is provide what I know in the way of the immune system. All right. So, whatever we can do to support our immune systems right now. Okay. There's always this underlying side of just being healthy, right? But what do you do in the grand scheme of things in a situation like this, right? What can we start doing? What can we look at with our overall immune system? And I think this is where I can stay in my lane. I see a lot of people on YouTube doing a lot of things that are sort of reactive. And the fact is we have to be real. We don't know the full big picture. We just don't. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in that, but I am going to at least stay in my lane and provide what I can in the way of immune boosting tips. Okay. That I came out of a world of inflammation. I understand the immune system. It's one thing that I'm pretty darn savvy in, but I don't talk about it on my channel a lot because there's not a ton of interest. Okay. People see me as the fitness guy and the health guy and the fat loss guy. And quite honestly, if I do videos surrounding the immune system, they just don't perform. Okay. So, what I want to talk about is ways outside of just vitamin C, because vitamin C, yes, is very important. And I've talked about it in videos, and I don't want to just beat it to the ground. I do feel strongly that vitamin C is important. However, there are other missing pieces. For example, vitamin D is required for vitamin C to really do its job, and vice versa. Okay, vitamin C is required for vitamin D, and vitamin D is ultimately required for vitamin C to do its job. And then there's a downstream process of magnesium and zinc that, in my opinion, is what I would call, and a couple of people I know, like Dr. Morley Robbins, call the root cause. Okay, so there's a trickle down effect. If vitamin C is required for the immune system to work and for vitamin D to work, then we have to look at what depletes vitamin D ultimately, and what signals do we get from the body. So what I'm going to cover in today's live broadcast, in addition to answering some people's questions however I can in my lane, where I am an expert, not where I'm not an expert, I'm going to talk about the relationship between zinc, the relationship between magnesium, vitamin D3, and ultimately vitamin C as sort of the end result of this. But we have to understand how the immune system works and how vitamin C works. Now, I do want everyone to, go ahead and comment where they're watching from. I do want to say hello, but I also know that a lot of people are going to be watching this broadcast later on, and I don't want to go into a whole lot of the just pleasantries of just hello, how much I can, because I want to try to make this as time conservative as possible. So I went ahead and I had compiled some notes because I was like, you know what, there's a lot of different things I want to cover. So full disclaimer, yes, I have some like little bullets written down. So if I glance down every now and then, it's just so that I stay on track, because normally in my live broadcasts, I'm communicating a lot. And the thing is let's start with vitamin C for a second, because vitamin C, what happens is our immune cells need vitamin C as almost an energy source. It's the simplest way to describe it, right? So if your immune cells are working hard at fighting something because they detect something, then they are going to require vitamin. And typically what happens is vitamin C gets pumped into the cell, and that provides the immune cell with energy. So the simplest way is you think of vitamin C as an energy currency for immune cells. Okay, now vitamin C is essentially worthless until the immune cells demand it. So what we do is we run into this issue where we don't need vitamin C. Excess vitamin C makes us feel sick, but then all of a sudden we need it. We never know when we really need it. Now, I think it's safe to say that during a time where people are concerned, like right now, probably better to have vitamin C than to not. But again, what good is vitamin C if it can't actually do its job? So here's where we get kind of interesting, and there's some research that heavily backs this up. Sorry, I'm sitting outside because it's actually starting to clear up here in Monterey, California, where I'm at, and I wanted to, I don't know, so the birds. Anyway, so our immune cells do not get activated unless vitamin D is present. Now, what are a lot of us doing right now? A lot of us are sitting in isolation. We're at home. We're not getting outside. We're not getting the vitamin D that we really should be. And vitamin D is required for these immune cells to turn on. Okay. So the simplest way to describe it is when your immune cells detect a threat. Okay, when the little patrol sergeants, if you want to call them that, are traveling around your body and they are looking for a threat and they identify a threat, well, the first thing that they're going to do is send out a signal for vitamin D to activate them. Okay, so what that means is the immune cell detects a threat. So let's say that the immune cell detects a virus. It's going to communicate to the rest of the body that it needs vitamin D. Okay, it needs vitamin D in order to actually activate this process and to activate more immune cells that are actually going to go and take care and ultimately get rid of the virus, right? So what happens if we don't have vitamin D? Well, then what happens is the immune cells remain naive. That's kind of the clinical term that they've used for it. So our immune cells, we have two different kinds. We have helper cells and we have what are called natural killer cells. And the helper cells go around and they sort of identify when something shouldn't be there. And they put a little Post-it note on it. And that Post-it note says, hey, kick me. Basically, it's like putting a kick me sticker on the back of something, right? Kick me tag. It says, take care of me, get rid of me. And then that signals a different kind of immune cell called a natural killer cell to come through and get rid of the threat. Well, if there's no vitamin D, then that natural killer cell never really knows what to do because it never gets the actual signal. Okay. Now, what's really important to note here, vitamin C, okay, back to vitamin C, is required vitamin D to convert. So I want you to just think about this puzzle for a second. Chuggity Mug says, oh God, this guy is an idiot. I love you, Chuggity Mugs. That's such a nice thing to say, okay, as I'm describing something that is probably beyond what you're comprehending at this moment. Anyhow, by the way, I'm just going to say, like, during this time, I have seen more haters and everything like that appear more than anything. So we have to look at the big picture. Vitamin D, what's going to go there? In order for vitamin D2 to ultimately convert into an active form of vitamin D, so the D3 that we need. Okay, so you need vitamin C to make that happen. I know it's a long, drawn-out process. So vitamin D we get from the diet, we get from the sun, whatever. It has to convert into a vitamin D3, which is the usable form. Turns out that vitamin C is required for that. And there was a study that was published in the Journal of Nutrition a while back that found that vitamin C is required that. So without that, you don't end up having vitamin D truly convert, which is, of course, the form that you need. So anyhow, that's the simplicity of it. But now think about the vicious cycle that this happens, that this causes, right? You have vitamin D that can't even convert into its usable form of vitamin D, okay, without vitamin C. But then you are also deficient in vitamin D. So your actual usable levels of vitamin D are totally in the toilet. Now you have less immune cells that are getting activated. So the vitamin C that you're consuming or should be consuming is kind of becoming useless, right? So that's why it's all a balance of having the right kind of vitamin C and the right amount of vitamin D. Okay, very, very important. And I will touch for a second on ascorbic acid versus whole food. Okay, these birds are just having a heyday. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Anyhow, so basically what ends up happening there is, you're just running into this vicious cycle, and that ultimately is a problem. But I want to touch on ascorbic acid for a second. A lot of people have commented on my vitamin C videos talking about L-ascorbic acid versus D-ascorbic acid and all that. Ascorbic acid in its D form is a synthetic form of vitamin C and does not work the same in the body. In fact, it can deplete the body of vitamin C. If you are looking at ascorbic acid, make sure it's L-ascorbic acid. Okay, and if you're looking at any kind of other vitamin C's, you really want a whole spectrum, whole food vitamin C otherwise. Anyhow, I'm not going to go into detail on a lot of the vitamin C. And I wrote out some other notes just I wanted to touch on. There's a study. Let me go and read the study. So study, clinical rheumatology. Okay, so the effects of vitamin C on D3 synthesis in humans were evaluated. The study included 20 females who were divided into two groups. The first of the 10 subjects received vitamin C at a dose of 150 milligrams via IV for 10 days, and the second 10 subjects received placebo. In a later study, the same two groups were tested for the second time with ascorbic acid at a dose of 1,000 milligrams versus placebo. Anyhow, long story short, in the first study, a significant increase in serum D3 was observed after ascorbic acid, with researchers concluding that ascorbic acid promotes D3 synthesis. Researchers conducted a second study after a 30-day washout period, giving its subject 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and found that the higher dose of vitamin C actually decreased D3 synthesis. As to why it was not articulated. So the point is if you take too much vitamin C when you're not needing it, then it can deplete your vitamin D. So what you always want to keep in balance of is if you're going to take vitamin C, you should also take vitamin D. It's just plain and simple because somehow they are counterproductive to each other in some ways, but they're also advantageous to each other. This is where things get really complicated with the immune system and where I want to be able to touch on magnesium a little bit. And if everyone could just do me a quick solid and hit that thumbs up button, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody, being here with this channel through these crazy times, because I'm seeing a lot of YouTube channels just struggling, right? They're doing everything they can to get their views and things like that. And I realized, and I took a stance that I'm not going to be talking about anything other than the stuff I would normally talk about. I'm just going to cater it a little bit more towards the situation that people are in right now. They're stuck at home. People are concerned. People are scared. And the thing is it's okay to be nervous about the situation that's going on, because quite frankly, none of us are getting solid information. None of us are. And people can't come on YouTube and be experts. And if I do content on vitamin C or if I do content on vitamin D, I suddenly have people out of the woodwork attacking me saying that I'm pretending to be a doctor when they've never watched my channel all in the first place. And nowhere am I going to talk about how to beat this. What I am going to do is talk about how to be healthy and how you can carry on what I teach you now into your everyday life. So hopefully even the common cold isn't an issue later on, right? Okay, we all get sick. We all have to deal with things, and we all have to take care of our immune system. So anyhow, you guys are the ones that are supporting this, and you guys are the ones that are making this channel possible. So I thank you immensely. And normally right now, just FYI, this is where I would mention Thrive Market, but listen to me carefully here. I wanted to make sure people know that right now, Thrive has shifted their gear. If you watch my channel, I talk about them all the time. They've shifted their gears towards trying to get away from trying to get members and trying to help people out. So right now, their goal is contributing $150 to people that are in need and need groceries and things like that. So it's a huge humanitarian shift. So anyhow, I put a link down below. Normally, I'd say go ahead and check out Thrive Market in order to get your pantry staples and things like that. But right now, it's tough. Like right now, even Thrive Market, they're having a hard time fulfilling orders because people are ordering food like crazy, right? So they're 2 to 4 weeks out, and it's crazy. Even my own company that does have vitamin C, like we're 25,000 units back ordered right now. It's crazy. And everything that we can do is just try to help people. So anyhow, I wanted to give a big shout out to Thrive for doing. So there's some information about what they're doing in terms of humanitarian efforts down below in the description. That way you can check them out. Feel free to check them out, but I highly dissuade you from pulling the trigger on Thrive right now, because they're very slow with their shipping at this moment because of everything being backlogged. Anyhow, Dan says, you can't improve your immune system. No, you can't really improve your immune system, but you can give your immune system that you are born with, your innate immune system, the tools to do its job better. Okay, so you can't say, I'm going to change my DNA and have an immediately better immune system. No, a lot of that you are somewhat born with and somewhat develop at a young age, but if you're not giving your body what it needs to be able to actually utilize that immune system, what good is it? So anyhow, I have to kind of catch back up with where I was. I talked about how vitamin C is super, super, super important, right? And then I talked about how vitamin D is very, very important to activate the immune cells. Okay, and then once those immune cells are activated, they need vitamin C. So we need vitamin C to activate vitamin D. We need vitamin D to turn on the immune cells or engage them. And then we need vitamin C again to feed those immune cells. Here's the problem. When we take vitamin D, we deplete our magnesium stores. And I have some science on this too. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Okay, so a review published in the journal, the American Osteopathic Association, found that vitamin D cannot be metabolized without sufficient magnesium levels, meaning that vitamin D remains stored and inactive for as many as 50% of Americans. So without magnesium, our vitamin D cannot get released. So first we have an issue with vitamin C not allowing vitamin D to get converted. Then we have a problem with magnesium, not enough magnesium, not being able to allow vitamin D to actually become active too. So we have a huge problem with vitamin D, almost bigger than vitamin C. So magnesium is super, super, super important. Okay, it's the 4th most abundant mineral, but it's also involved in like close to 400 different enzymatic processes within the body. Vitamin D ultimately being released is one of them. So anyhow, now we're getting to the link between vitamin C is important, vitamin D is important, but if we want to take vitamin D, then we need to take magnesium. Okay, so I have some other notes here that I wanted to read out to you based on this research, right? So vitamin T's bioavailability depends on magnesium. Okay, the enzymes in our liver that enable vitamin D metabolism actually need magnesium to draw from. So since magnesium is required for the conversion of vitamin D into its active form, it's also true that taking vitamin D may not raise your vitamin D levels in those that are magnesium deficient. So what that means is our vitamin D can't elevate if we're magnesium deficient. So if you ever look at patients that are taking vitamin D because their doctors have ordered them to take vitamin D, but their levels do not go up, it's because they do not have the magnesium to support that actual release of the vitamin D. So even if you're taking vitamin D, if you're not taking magnesium with it, then you can see how the issue ends up being an issue again. So now we just look further down the line. Now we could go on and on and on and on, but realistically, magnesium is used up whenever vitamin D is converted into its usable form, and then magnesium is required to convert vitamin D into its active form. Sorry guys, hang on, fix my headphones. So when we actually take vitamin D and convert it, we're burning magnesium, okay? And then we also require magnesium to convert it in the blood. So I know if it's complicated and there's a lot of moving pieces, but I'm trying to do what I can to kind of help people understand the complexity of the immune system here. And again, I hope that these birds aren't making it totally obnoxious for everybody. So now to back up again. Again, I'm sorry, it's like my screen is super dark, so I see people commenting and everything like that. Sorry. Jack Rock says, quit babbling. Where are your degrees to back up all this? Or are you just, okay, wow. This is what's really wild here is people have just come out of the woodwork and being unbelievably rude. I have not seen this much hate on a channel in a long time. And the funny thing is I'm being very honest about my approach on things, and I'm being very honest with everything that I'm saying. Okay. So my job is to articulate the subject matter the best that I can so that people can understand it. I am not a doctor. Okay. I have been in the research field. I absolutely have. And a lot of what I do is take complex research and try to make it as digestible as possible so that people aren't having to sit there reading days worth of papers. Okay. I've been down the road of being overweight, being unhealthy, going through metabolic disorder, going through prediabetes, being hypertensive. And the whole point of my channel is to be relatable. It is not to pretend to be a doctor. So if you go to school and you sit in front of a teacher and that teacher is explaining something to you, does it mean that they spent 10 years researching that particular thing? So anyhow, point is I don't want to go neg on everybody and go negative, but it's been really sad to see a lot of just the hate coming through because people just do not want to hear anything because there's so much misinformation out there right now. Anyhow, back to the basics of the immune system. The one thing that we need to talk about here that we haven't touched on yet is zinc, okay? We think about zinc when we're sick because it's in our lozenges and it's just, right, it's always there, right? We think of zinc in our cough drops and in our lozenges. But what's happening with zinc is actually a little bit more at a genetic level. Okay, so when you look at inflammation in the body, you have something called nuclear factor kappa B, which is a protein that triggers inflammation. Now remember, when we're sick or when we're potentially fighting off an infection or anything, we have a degree of inflammation that is occurring, okay? So that inflammation occurs at a small scale to try to be the first line of defense. It's okay, we want that inflammation. We don't want chronic inflammation. So then what ends up happening is from there, it triggers all kinds of different cascades. Now what happens is zinc gets sucked into that whole process. So the inflammation pathway, nuclear factor kappa B, there's a genetic code called ZIP8, ZIP8, that allows zinc into this whole inflammation process. And that helps mitigate the inflammation to keep it from going out of control. When you get sick, a lot of the feelings that you feel and the symptoms that you feel when you're sick are a result of the inflammation. It's a result of your body doing what it can to fix itself, okay? So when you get a runny nose, when you get a sore throat, a lot of it is inflammation of specific membranes. It's inflammation of the respiratory tract, whatever, because there's activity there, fighting a virus or doing whatever it needs to do. So if we quell inflammation too much, sure, we can quell the symptoms, but we don't want to quell it too much, okay? So it's the job of zinc to come in and help kind of moderate that a little bit and keep the inflammation from getting like totally out of hand, okay? Now, again, I had an interesting study I wanted to pull up here. Okay, so this is where, yeah, it actually gets complicated. So this one's the one that really took a look at, yeah, it's from Ohio State. Sorry, I was glancing down at it because there's a lot of research on this. And what I've been based over the last couple of days is trying to solidify some of what I know in the world of vitamin C and vitamin D and expand upon it. Because again, like I've mentioned, vitamin D is required for vitamin C to ultimately be used, and magnesium is required for D. So there has to be a bigger piece to this equation. Anyhow, basically what happens is when someone is zinc deficient, they found that their immune system overreacted more. So when someone didn't have enough of this zinc, their immune system would react to something and it would just go overboard. It would just react so much. So you would get more sick than you needed to be sick. Here's what you have to remember. Okay, secondary infections, things like that, those are what really hurt people in a lot of cases. So if you take a situation where someone is deficient in zinc and their body is fighting off a cold, and the zinc that they do have gets used up to fight the cold, or essentially to alleviate symptoms and to quell inflammation, well, then you're in a worse situation if you have a secondary infection or anything like that. Point is there is a point to having zinc. There is a reason that we would have zinc. It's not simply just because it helps your throat or anything like that. So basically, after the zinc enters the cell, it then binds to a different protein in that whole inflammatory system. So like in an immune cell, the zinc comes in, and long story short, if we have too much zinc, then we can have a problem. If we don't have enough zinc, then we have a problem. What does this mean? Because I know I'm just blabbling on and on and on and on, and I promise it's all going to be kind of summarized. If we have too much zinc, then yeah, we could potentially quell too much inflammation. But if we don't have enough zinc, then we run into a bigger issue. So what is kind of the general rule of thumb? Well, this is where I'm not a doctor and I can't give you exact numbers. But what I would recommend is every time you take vitamin C, you should also take some vitamin D. But every time you take vitamin D, you want to take a little bit of magnesium. Now, zinc works along a secondary pathway to that. So I do recommend, just as a matter of just getting in that same habit, you may want to consider taking zinc too. But I don't recommend having more than like 50 to 100 milligrams of zinc per day, because it's just overkill. It's just important that you don't become deficient in it. And it's easy to get deficient in it. It's also easy to take in a lot. But if you're not eating shellfish, if you're not eating meats that are rich in zinc, then you're going to run into a problem where you're not getting enough zinc to begin with. So anyhow, that's kind of just the general summation of this. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't sit here and tell you everything that's going to fix you or everything that's going to solve a problem, but I can at least do what I can to help you understand your own immune system. So for those of, yeah, and then actually, James, you brought up copper. So then you guys want to see how funky this can get? So then copper and zinc cancel each other out, right? So if you have too much copper, then you don't have enough zinc. If you have too much zinc, then it depletes your copper, and copper plays a big role in the immune system. Now, at the end of the day, it does circle back to magnesium, okay? Because if you want to get kind of nitty gritty on the minerals, then what happens is copper helps allow magnesium to do its job properly, okay? And then if you don't have, and it also allows iron to get out of the way. It's very, very complicated beyond what I could truly explain without sounding completely crazy, because we have to look at the big picture with iron too. Iron, although is good, iron can also deplete or ruin our immune system's ability to really do its work if we have too much in the wrong state. Iron, think about iron. If you leave an iron dumbbell out in the rain, in the elements, it's going to rust, right? That's called oxidation. The same thing can happen inside your body if you have too much iron, right? If you have too much iron that's not being utilized. Iron needs to be in its proper utilized state, not just in a storage state that's really just sitting there ultimately rusting. So we require copper to move iron into its proper state. I always say that copper is like a crane operator. But then you start getting, if you get down this rabbit hole too much, it's just going to confuse people, because then you're telling them to take copper, you're telling them to take zinc, magnesium. Okay. I just think it's very important that people understand the big picture of what's going on with the immune system. And it's not as simple as taking vitamin C. Then if we look at the big picture also with inflammation, and people are consuming ibuprofen when they get sick and everything like that, there's actually some research that backs, and even France put out a very important notice talking about this to some of their population, that not take ibuprofen when you have viral infections. Now, I can't speak to that because I'm not a virologist. I encourage, what I'm going to tell you here is encourage you to look that up, check out the effect of ibuprofen on viruses. Okay, I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak to that. I just want you guys to check that out on your own. It's an area that I'm just investigating for my own pleasure because I think it's kind of interesting. Anyhow, let's go ahead and let's answer some questions just because there are, people are asking quantities. Okay, I wish that I could give you a specific quantity to take. But again, since I'm trying to be respectful of the fact that I'm not a doctor and I don't want to prescribe anything and I don't want to say anything in particular, I'll just give you some loose numbers of what I use personally. Can you guys, if you are watching this, can you please hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button? That way, at least we get some good engagement on this video. And I'll be honest, like it's been a rough couple of days because it seems like my YouTube channel's just been overrun with trolls because of some of the immune-based content. And it's just been like, it's hard to not have that affect you. It's hard to not. So I was hoping to hop on here and get some positivity out there. But of course, we got invaded by trolls too. So anyhow, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. That way YouTube knows that this is good content. It serves it out to the audience that, my audience sees it and you can share it with friends and family and everything like that. So let's talk numbers a little bit. If you've watched my vitamin C videos, you know that there's some studies out there, or some case studies, I should say, that show that you can increase your vitamin C content, like when you're sick, up to like 18,000 milligrams without having any gastric issues. It is a water-soluble vitamin, so sure, in terms of toxicity, I can't really speak to it officially, but it's very unlikely. But what it can do is, if you have unused vitamin C and you're dehydrated, then sure, there's some link with kidney issues and things like that. So you just want to make sure. What I do personally is when I feel myself sleep deprived or when I feel myself stressed out or anything like that, what I will generally do is increase vitamin C intake up from anywhere from 7,000 milligrams to like all the way up to 15,000 milligrams. I will take a lot. That's me. Okay. I don't have an issue with it. I don't get gastric upset with it. Now, when it comes down to vitamin D, you want to go down another rabbit hole, you also have to make sure you're taking vitamin K2 with your vitamin D. So what you don't want to have happen is vitamin D not really do its job. Okay, the whole role of vitamin D and the process of vitamin D and how it works with calcium is to help shuttle calcium into the right place. But without vitamin K2, that can't really happen. So vitamin D plus K2, okay, and you want to take vitamin D, which, by the way, they usually come together. A lot of times when you get vitamin D, most modern brands will have vitamin D combined with K2 because they know that's very important. Talk about that in a second. Vitamin D, do remember, whenever you take a supplemental vitamin D, it is a synthetic form, okay? Always try to get natural form of vitamin D whenever you can, okay? I personally, in the summertime, do not even take vitamin D. I am outside enough that I know that I'm getting enough. So therefore, it works fine with the vitamin C, and my magnesium stores are less depleted, so I don't have to take as much. Given that it's wintertime and that it's cold, if you're taking between 2,000 and 5,000 IUs of vitamin D, you probably want to be adding a couple hundred milligrams of good quality magnesium in. Okay, and that is important because, again, like I mentioned earlier, magnesium gets depleted when vitamin D is getting converted. So if you take a vitamin D and it's working on getting actively converted from its synthetic form into an ultimately usable form in your body, you're draining your magnesium stores. If you're getting your vitamin D naturally, you're not having to take in as much, so you're requiring less magnesium. Does that make sense to everybody? I want to make sure that people are following me. Does that make sense in terms of like the relationship between magnesium and all of that stuff? If anyone is lost, just let me know, but I do want to make sure, just say, yes, I understand in the comment section. That way, I'm going to wait for people to reply here. Yes, people, okay, they understand. Yes. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, a lot of people saying they get it. Again, it's difficult because people can hop on these broadcasts and it can be very, very difficult to, these birds are just having a heyday. Anyway, I guess they're laughing at me. Look at this idiot doing a live. Ooh, what's he talking to this like electric box weirdo? Okay, cool. We've got a lot of people that understand. So basically, when we get down to the numbers, if you're not getting a lot of sunlight, generally it's recommended somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 IUs. And then you want to make sure that you're adding in that magnesium, a couple hundred milligrams. But again, full disclaimer, you have to test your numbers yourself. I cannot give you the numbers specifically. I'm telling you what I generally use. And then for zinc, I take between 50 and 100 milligrams per day when I feel like I'm immunocompromised. You can usually tell that you're zinc deficient more long-term if you start to notice that wounds don't heal as well. Maybe your hair is a little bit brittle. Your skin is a little bit just less quality. Your nails are brittle. Simply because zinc helps cells that turn over fast, including immune cells. Immune cells can turn over very fast. So when you're deficient in zinc, your immune cells don't turn over as fast. Your hair and your skin cells don't turn over as fast. So that means that they die quicker, right? So you notice it. They manifest. So if you have really brittle hair, brittle nails, you might be someone that needs to take a little bit more zinc. It's just something to note. Anyhow, let me go and see if anyone wants to ask some questions. And I'm going to recap again. We have a lot of people that are hopping on here. We talked about vitamin C and how the immune cells essentially fuel on vitamin C. And I don't know, the weather is just turning. I'm wondering if it might start to rain here. We got out for a little bit this morning, went for a little hike, and weather was great. Now it looks like it's starting to turn on me. Anyhow, so vitamin C required to really power the cell, but we don't produce vitamin C, unlike other mammals, so we need to get it from an exogenous source. Now, vitamin C is also required for vitamin D to convert, but then for vitamin D to convert, we use up magnesium. And then if we're deficient in magnesium, we're in a whole world of hurt because that involves 400 different enzymatic functions within the body. So we think we're in a world of hurt if we don't have vitamin C. We're in a serious world of hurt if we don't have magnesium because it is a cofactor in so many different things. Anyhow, can I touch on boron? Well, boron in the immune system, I know there is some preliminary research on that, but I can't really speak to that. I can speak to boron and testosterone, but I don't know if that's really appropriate for this particular thing. MSM with vitamin C, I have heard that as well. What type of magnesium? Little Lebanon asks. It's a really good question. Personally, when it comes to magnesium, I'm more of a fan of what is called dimagnesium malate. And what that is a more sustained release form. I, by all means, do not want this to turn into any kind of promotional thing. But I knew people would ask. So if you look down in the description, I put some links to recommended magnesiums. Anyhow, I don't even want to spend a lot of time on that, but I'll just leave that there. Okay, later on. Other questions? Does colloidal silver? I can't speak to colloidal silver. It's just too much misinformation out there. There's a lot of different pieces. One thing I do want to touch on, again, is, of course, the microbiome a little bit. We do have to remember also that a lot of our immune system starts in our gut. So we do have to be paying attention to that. I don't think so much that the immune system begins in the gut, more so is it begins to get damaged by the gut. Okay. So the way that we have to look at it is if we have a lot of just dysbiosis within the gut, we have more in the way of lipopolysaccharides that can potentially leak into the bloodstream, which compromises our immune system. So I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure there is some link between the gut and the immune system as a whole, but I think the bigger picture that we face, at least in the Western world, is that we're immunocompromised or immunosuppressed because we have such a dysbiosis in the gut, and it's leaking just byproducts, and it's leaking these, basically these little guys that live on the surface of gram-negative bacteria called lipopolysaccharides that cause our immune system to become ultra active to fight them when they should be out fighting things that are more important, like a virus or something that we need to fight off, right? So anyhow, I think it is very important during a time in which you're not very active, or when you're stuck at home, or when you're not able to be in your normal routine, that you take care of your gut. So yes, I am eating a lot of fermented foods right now because I feel like if I'm going to eat shelf-stable things, or I'm going to stock my fridge with things, fermented foods are going to be the way to go because I can at least keep my gut really healthy. So I am, yes, leaning on that. I will be posting a video surrounding a little meal plan for people that don't have a lot of variety of food right now, that might have a limited amount of food. And what I'm going to do with this meal plan video is I'm going to give 3 different options for breakfast, 3 different options for lunch, 3 different options for dinner. And we're going to talk about a fasting strategy. None of it is going to be designed to cure anything or fix anything. It is a stopgap. It is damage control. That is all that it is. I think everyone that you talk to right now in the world, it's all just about mitigating risk, mitigating loss, right? And that's what we have to look at right here even with our bodies, right? Gyms are closed. We're maybe not as active. We're stressed out a little bit because whether it's the virus or whether it's money or whether it is anything right now, we're cooped up at home with the family and we just need to get out. All this stuff, we need to be taking that into consideration. So I hope that helps with the type of magnesium. Dimagnesium malate is definitely going to be one of the better ones. Looks like my chat got disconnected. Hopefully you guys all can see me here. Well, that's a bummer. If you guys can hear me, it killed my chat. So that's definitely a big bummer. Anyhow, people are still here, so it must not have totally dropped off. Yeah, people are still joining in. So just FYI, my chat box has decided to close and not work. So I'm going to try to open this up in a different window. 1 second. Okay, cool. Looks like we're good. I just had to open it in a different window. Perfect. Hang on, guys. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. I know a lot of people are popping in here. Go ahead and hit me with questions, whether it's immune related, fat loss related, but I just want to try to keep it in the ecosystem of what we can do right now, in the given situation. What is the best quality magnesium? So yeah, I started to touch on dimagnesium malate is the most universal kind of sustained release. It's bound to malic acid, so it breaks down a little bit slower, and it is in a chelated form, which means that it's going to absorb in its whole form and doesn't get broken down by the gut as much. I also like magnesium glycinate. Okay, that is magnesium that's bound to glycine. So when you bind magnesium to an amino acid, it does make it so that it has a different function. And because it's bound to glycine, it can cross through the blood-brain barrier. So magnesium glycinate is a great one to take at night. And at the end of the day, no matter what magnesium you take, it's still ultimately serving the purpose in the body. It's just the goal to get it where you want it the most. Lucky Lobo Production says ibuprofen is hurting people who have, yes, I can't speak to that because I'm not a doctor, but I mentioned that. I've seen that, and I encourage everyone to look up the relationship between ibuprofen and any kind of viral state. 1 second, guys. I'm making sure. Okay, I've got some other questions. Boron uses. People still asking about boron. Boron and the immune system, I cannot speak to. Boron, if you take 9 milligrams per day, can help with free testosterone production within the body. Can we absorb capsules, and what is vitamin K2, says Finding Research. Vitamin K2 is something that allows vitamin D to actually shuttle calcium to the right place. What we don't want to do is we don't want to have calcium stuck in the bloodstream. Think about it like this. Calcium calcifies things. If you've heard of calcification of the arteries, you've heard anything like that, that's not what we want. We don't want, in fact, one of the tests that I recommend getting if people are worried about heart disease is, a calcium artery test, right? Seeing how much CAC, seeing how much calcium is actually in the blood. And that's a better indicator of plaque than anything else, that and inflammation. If you have K2, it'll allow vitamin D to really do its job of shuttling calcium where it's supposed to go. Vitamin D has a lot of different functions in the body. Okay, remember, it's a hormone. It's not a vitamin. So it does do a lot of different things that somehow are ultimately all correlated. Alpha lipoic acid, I don't recommend taking a whole lot of alpha lipoic acid. It is good because it can have some effects in the brain, but in terms of fighting immunity, I don't know if it's really the best. I do recommend, quite honestly, utilizing olive oil a lot right now. Okay, olive oil hydroxytyrosol, that's one of the antioxidants that's naturally in olive oil, probably one of the most powerful just natural antioxidants that's out there. I want you to do what you can to support your body's innate immune system, your body's natural given immune system. There is nothing that you can take. Okay, I shouldn't say this legitimately, but I believe there is nothing that you can take that is going to exogenously prevent an illness like just supporting what your body can naturally do. The issue that is at hand is a compromised immune system is born either two ways. Okay, it's going to be born through actually three ways. Through literally your exposure and your immunity growing up, poor health and being immunocompromised, but three, metabolic distress, like where you are in such an immunocompromised state because you have metabolic disorder, diabetes, anything like that, that your immune system is just underactive and for whatever reason, not working right? There's a lot of different links there. And again, things that I can't speak to because it's out of my realm of expertise. Jeff Kohler says, you know nothing about nothing. Shut up. Okay. Man, there's a lot of just mean people. Yay for magnesium glycinate. Sorry, I'm just trying to. What about apple cider vinegar? I don't want people to believe that apple cider vinegar is going to be the key to everything too, but I do think that apple cider vinegar from the side of like pepsin and everything like that is going to be really good, at least for maintaining blood sugar during this time. So you're not going to have cravings, right? That's like at the end all be all, you can at least fall on that. Someone says, don't read those. Well, it's kind of hard when they're right in my face. You got to remember that, guys. Like I can't. So if you're like imagine being on stage and you've got a world of people that are saying, I love you, thank you, thank you. And then you've got one heckler that says, you know, I hate your living guts. I hope you go away. You're still going to hear it, right? It's like when I look at this, I can't help but see it because they're popping up and this guy just keeps repeating himself. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to read some more of these questions. Someone says, fighting belief, you asked about a keto question. I would love to do a more in-depth keto Q&A and live discussion. I want to try to make this a little bit more just immune focused. So I know that you're asking a question specifically, and I'll address it really quick. I really think that, quite frankly, you might just need a couple-week break from keto based on what you're saying. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to look at these questions here. There's a lot. Benefits of vitamin A for the immune system. Yes. So vitamin A in its true retinol form. So one of the things that I would recommend if this was the case would be getting vitamin A from a form like cod liver oil. Okay. Don't get your vitamin A just from a straight up vitamin A synthetic form. Try to get a natural form like cod liver oil where you can actually get a little bit of vitamin D as well. Guys, can we go ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you can? Just get some more likes on this video just so that more and more people can see it. That way we get some of the support that we need. Let's see. What about magnesium while fasting? You can absolutely take a magnesium tab while you're fasting. I actually did some videos on this where these birds, holy cow. Magnesium is interesting because although it is something that could, in theory, break your fast, it doesn't suppress what are called the cardiotonic effects of epinephrine. So magnesium is relaxing. It's designed to help you relax. It's the opposite of calcium, which is excitatory. It allows your muscles to relax. So in theory, you would think, well, this is bad because I want my body to have a high level of epinephrine and excitement during a fast to ultimately burn fat and utilize those catecholamines properly. And what that means is when you're fasting, you're running on adrenaline, but that adrenaline's a good thing. And in essence, magnesium should cut adrenaline, but it doesn't cut adrenaline at the cardiotonic level. What that means is it doesn't cut adrenaline at like the heart level. So you're still able to get that increase in heart rate. You're still able to get that buzz you get from a fast without it, while still simultaneously relaxing your muscles. So I would take just a magnesium tab while you're fasting. Let's see. How to combat diarrhea from magnesium supplements. Oh, you're simply Cindy, probably taking the wrong kind of magnesium. Take a slower release magnesium. Again, like a magnesium sustained release, like a dimagnesium malate, magnesium glycinate. Don't take as much at once. Drip it out throughout the day and it might help you out a little bit. Thank you guys all for hitting that thumbs up button. I do appreciate it. Good question. Okay. Does vitamin C break a fast? Should you be, if you're an intermittent faster, like a lot of people on my channel, should you be taking vitamin C during this time when you fast? Take your vitamin C after you break your fast. Take your vitamin C after you break your fast. It's going to help you out in terms of the absorption and the utilization. And a very important thing, and I'm so glad that you brought this up because now it allows me to address this. Vitamin C and glucose use the same transporter for absorption. So if you do eat carbohydrates, I know some people follow a ketogenic lifestyle on my channel. If you eat carbohydrates, try to take your vitamin C away from the carbohydrates. Do not take it during a fast. Take it with meals or take it during your eating period, but do not take it with carbs because the vitamin C competes for the same transporter as glucose, and your body is going to prioritize the glucose because the glucose is something that we inherently use. Vitamin C, our bodies aren't, like they're not used to it, right? We need glucose. Our bodies recognize glucose. Our body doesn't recognize that exogenous vitamin C in the same way. So glucose is going to take the priority. So take vitamin C separate from your carbohydrates and definitely don't consume vitamin C with sugar. That's what's funny is like we push orange juice for vitamin C, but realistically the sugar is counteracting the actual absorption of the vitamin C because they share that same transporter, that glucose transporters. Is the Mag SRT supplement from Jigsaw Health all right to take while fasting? Yes, it is. Colloidal silver, can't really speak on that. Zunar just answered that question surrounding, is it better to take liquid D3? I prefer a liquid form, like a micellar liposomal form that's going to absorb a little bit better. It also makes it so that, again, it's actually getting to the right place. Does C4 pre-workout break a fast? Technically it does because of the acesulfame potassium. C8 MCT oil, that's not going to do anything for your immune system per se that I know of. Sorry, there's a lot of questions here. What about liposomal vitamin C? Yeah, if you look at the videos that I do on vitamin C, I linked out to a brand that I am on the advisory board for, which is Pure Thrive. The hard part is we are back ordered like 25,000 units on vitamin C. So as much as I would love to send people to a brand that I ultimately have a big part in, I also have to be honest with you and say that like it would be probably 4 weeks before anybody would even get it. And that's just simply because It's a popular product. Also wanted to make sure, sorry, I got an airplane flying overhead, so it might be a little loud. Wanted to make sure I mentioned, I'm always talking about Thrive Market, and I appreciate everyone, utilizing Thrive Market during this time to get groceries. But right now, I just wanted to make sure, since they are a sponsor of this channel, that I relay this information to people. You may want to reconsider using them for at least like 2-3 weeks, because right now, as you can imagine, they are so unbelievably overloaded with orders and things. Like, it's out of control, and they're afraid that they're going to have a poor member experience. And I totally appreciate and understand that. So they've shifted their efforts towards like humanitarian stuff. So they're taking like granting $150 to people that are really in need in terms of groceries, and they're really trying to make a push to just help out the community now. So anyhow, I still linked to them down below. That way you can still check out Thrive Market and see, about getting your groceries, but just know that there is a long delay, and know that their efforts right now are more towards community and humanitarian efforts. So just letting you guys know that. Let's see. Sorry, there's a bunch of questions. We have so many people. Magnesium with or without vitamin B? Well, it's funny that you say that, because I wanted to talk a little bit about vitamin B. So vitamin B is going to help the body make the new red blood cells that you need. Okay, so that's going to carry oxygen. But then if you're deficient in vitamin B, then it decreases the production of the antibodies, right? So like if we're looking at specifically like IgG and IgM, you ultimately can't produce the antibodies. You can't produce vitamins. You can't produce the T cells. You can't create the T cells. So I didn't put this in there because it's pretty rare for people to become super vitamin B deficient. I know that the supplement companies will market that you probably are, because they want you to take a lot of vitamin B. The reality is, I doubt that many people are super deficient in B, but it's still important. Like vitamin B6 is still a really, really good B vitamin to take when it comes down to your immunoglobulins and how that whole process works. And then of course, when we look at B12, that's just going to be the overall white blood cell and red blood cells. So again, immune system support, sure, vitamin Bs are going to be great, but I just don't know if it's worth investing extra money in B vitamins, because if you're getting enough in the way of proper nutrients, you should still get some good B vitamins in. Anyhow, so a lot of questions. Sorry, as Vic Marion says, save us, Thomas. I have to repeat myself again. I know we got a lot of new people coming on here. I am not trying to defeat this thing. I'm not here to be that person. I'm here to just provide you with as many answers as I can in terms of how your body works and how the immune system works. It's a nice shift for me to get away from the fat loss content and the intermittent fasting content and talk a little bit more just about the immune system and everything like that. But I am going to have to hop off. You guys are super awesome. Thank you all for all the positive support. And I know we've had a lot of trolls. We've had a lot of negativity hopping on this channel recently. I just ask you guys to please turn on those notifications. Make sure that you're always checking out my videos. I'll have a really interesting video tomorrow, by the way. Another Costco video, but FYI, just so you know, it's a Costco video that was filmed before everything went crazy. I'm not going into Costco now. I'm not going to, I speak at events, I come around people and things like that. I just don't want to be contaminating things myself, right? It's just common courtesy, in my opinion. It's not about being brave or being sexy and being able to, go and, I'm going to go to the store and brave it. It's not that. It's common courtesy and respect. There's elderly people, and I don't know. Anyhow, so I filmed a video at Costco like before everything really went kind of haywire, and I wanted to outline what I thought were the most high calorie foods that people really should stock up on, because if there is an actual issue with supply chain stuff later on, in my personal opinion on this, is if an issue does occur, it's going to be a supply chain issue, right? That's where we could run into problems, and seeing it firsthand with being back ordered on things, supply chain issues. Okay, let's not stock up on empty calories. Let's stock up on high calorie, nutrient dense foods that would actually provide us with satiation, so that, macadamia nuts, a bag of macadamia nuts is going to feed a family of 4 for a month. I mean, realistically, and a lot of you guys that are watching my channel are probably so fat adapted from intermittent fasting and things like that, probably have a pretty serious advantage if there was a situation like that. So anyhow, I have that video coming out tomorrow morning. So just set your reminders. It's going to come out at 7 a.m. Pacific time. I could really use your support on it to make sure that, people get the right information out there in terms of the right foods to eat during this crazy time. And then I will also be posting up that limited variability meal plan for people. I'm just working on that right now, and I'll probably just film it literally with my phone, because my team is working from home. I'm working from home, and I'm not going to even have them come into the studio until some things kind of blow over. So the videos might be a little bit different for a little while, but we'll be back in action in no time. And thank you all for the support. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, don't forget to keep those notifications on. See you guys soon.